So here we go again. Another one of these discoveries that probably changed history and somebody's life. Just some people just have all the luck. Ain't that right? All the luck. Listen to this. A flat tire leads to a discovery that can change history. What has a flat tire ever done for you? I know for me, it's nothing, cost me nothing but time and money, right? Nothing else. I ain't hating. I'm just saying. But anyway, man, we're going to get into this video. So if you're new, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. Join the fam. Let's check this out.
One of the things that's truly amazing about us humans is our curiosity. And yes, I'm a human, not actually the alien that's shown on the screen and in our thumbnails. Or am I? Anyway, curiosity is one of the most important attributes of all of humanity, as it leads us to discover new and wonderful things. And this often happens by accident. From the bizarre giant heads on a faraway island to some pretty stinky cheese, here's the 20 most amazing discoveries that shocked the world. Number 20. Easter Island Heads. The Easter Island Heads, also called the Moai, are the monoliths that were carved by the Rapa Nui people on the Polynesian island off Easter Island. Oh boy, wait till the ancient alien guy sees this. The work was done between 1250 and 1500, and not by little green men, but by the amazing native architects of the island. The statues show how important ancestors who have been made into gods are. People think that the 900 sculptures are one of the most important.
That's actually probably, like, now I'm thinking about like how they moved a lot of things back in the day, and we've been trying to figure out, especially with the pyramids and different things like that. That could have been one of them.
Impressive architectural feats in the world, especially considering how hard it was for the Rapa Nui to move them. I gotta agree. This dude, named Paro, is 33 feet tall and weighs 92 tons. It's the tallest statue on the whole island. These were discovered by accident by a Dutch boat that showed up here, which shows how crazy things can be. Sometimes even a flat tire can lead you to a discovery that can change history. You just never know. The weirdest thing is, they aren't just heads, they also have full bodies, but they're now buried underground. Boy, I'm glad the sculptors didn't give up when they were ahead. Before we go on, like this video, smash that subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now, or this centipede will crawl on your face when you're sleeping. Number 19. Extremely old cheese. Murders, war, child sacrifice. The past was a terrifying place. Also, it was full of cheese, apparently. Archaeologists in Saqqara, Egypt, found a hunk of cheese that was buried 3,300 years ago in the tomb of an official who worked for the pharaoh. This cheese is the oldest cheese that's ever been found. The bad news is that it's not edible, so hold your toasties for a moment in case you were getting any ideas about melting this all over some, like, bread or something. Even cheese can go bad after being in a dead person's tomb for more than 3,000 years. No amount of sauce is gonna make this okay. It was made from cow's milk mixed with either goat or sheep milk, and many people think it's also cursed, which is another reason not to add it to your pasta bowl. If you ate some of this cheese, the curse would probably have to work pretty quickly to kill you faster than the bacteria living in it, though. This cheese has one of the common and dangerous bacteria that still makes unpasteurized cheese dangerous today. It causes a disease that isn't fatal, but is incredibly uncommon and will cause heart damage. This
you're gonna pretty much wish you were gone.
cheese would have been really acidic and kinda spreadable. It was a favorite of high-ranking officials in the ancient city of Memphis, so we know it was good. Well, once upon a time anyway. Number 18. The oldest known abstract artwork. Scientists say that two tiny pieces of engraved ochre are the oldest works of art ever found. They show that people began to be creative in Africa at least 77,000 years ago. Pieces with a pattern of crossed lines were found in Bolombos Cave in South Africa. This shows that people were able to think in abstract ways and use symbols tens of thousands of years before they moved from Africa to Europe. Scientists know that people used fire and simple tools a long time ago, but they don't think of this as modern. However, this evidence of artwork is a much stronger link between today and our distant past. Some people said that this looks like the world's oldest hashtag, and I think it's safe to say that the people who made this version of the symbol didn't give it the same meaning or importance that we do. Nevertheless, the discovery is exciting because it's the oldest piece of abstract art we found. It's also interesting because it has something to do with kinds of media that catch our attention today. Hashtag caveman. Number 17. The Lost Bones of Richard III. In 2012, the body of Richard III was found under a parking lot in the English city of Leicester. This made people all over the world very excited, not just because some of the mysteries of England's most mysterious king might finally be solved.
That parking lot could have once been a cemetery or a gravesite, you know what I mean? You would hope people don't build over top of it, but let's be honest, it happens.
Excited. Not just because some of the mysteries of England's most mysterious king might finally be solved. Wow. My kingdom, for a parking spot. Anyway, they say history is written by the winners, and the Tudors and their most famous playwright said that Richard was hunched over, had a withered hand, and walked with a limp. He was, I quote, deformed, unfinished, and so lame and out of style that dogs bark at me when I stop by them, Shakespeare said. When the archaeologists who were looking for Richard's bones saw the skeleton's twisted spine, the hairs on the back of their necks stood up. Later tests showed that Richard had a condition called idiopathic adolescent onset scoliosis. But while the skeleton's curved vertebrae were shocking, experts say Richard III would not have been able to tell he was disabled while he was alive. It would have merely meant that his right shoulder was a little higher than his left, but this was probably hidden by his clothes and only his closest families and friends would have known. Number...
Y'all ever thought of your shoulder being higher than the... Never really thought about that.
16. Nutcrackers used by ancient chimpanzees. Dr. Julio Mercader is one of the few archaeologists in the world who studies the material culture of great apes, especially chimpanzees. In 2006, he found so-called hammers made of stone that were 4,300 years old in the Tahr rainforest of Africa's Ivory Coast. The team found stone hammers that were basically irregularly shaped rocks about the size of cantaloupes that had worn patterns on them, showing that they'd been used to crack the shells of nuts. The research proves beyond a doubt that the artifacts could not have been made by nature or people. The stones are too big for humans to easily use and have starch left over from the nuts that chimpanzees eat, but humans don't. The find suggests that the Stone Age of chimpanzees happened a long time ago. Soon they'll have a car like the ones...
Let's just stop for a second. How smart are they to just grab a rock or a brick or something like that? Like, I'm just sitting here in fascination of that. Let me back it up, because I didn't hear a word he said. I was still in awe.
That the artifacts could not have been made by nature or people. The stones are too big for humans to easily use and have starch left over from the nuts that chimpanzees eat, but humans don't. The find suggests that the Stone Age of chimpanzees happened a long time ago. Soon they'll have a car like the ones in the Flintstones to drive around in, I guess. Like most great discoveries, the article raises as many questions as it answers. Why and how did this group of chimpanzees keep cracking nuts while other groups that lived in the same places had the same nuts didn't? I sure hope that chimpanzee archaeology will bring more surprises in the future. Well, surprises and answers, I guess. Number 15.
Smart.
A poo-covered shoe. About 5,500 years ago, somewhere in the mountains of Armenia, someone wore what's now the oldest leather shoe ever found. The well-preserved shoes were made of a single piece of leather that was laced up the front and back. To be honest, no one would mistake this for a penny loafer or a track shoe, but they must be remarkably familiar looking. The right foot of the person who wore the shoe shaped it into their own footprint, and it was found in a cave with other signs that people once lived there.
Be careful. Kanye be done came, saw this, and done created something that looked just like this. Sorry, man. I couldn't help myself. Man, some of them Yeezys kind of look like this, though.
The shoe is filled with grass that's about 6,000 years old from the same time as the leather. Before this, the oldest leather shoe found in Europe or Asia was the Otzi, the famous iceman who was found frozen in the Alps a few years ago and is now kept in Italy. This Armenian shoe is a few hundred years older than the Otzi, which is dated back to between 5,375 and 5,128 years ago. The shoe dates back to about 3,500 BC when Armenia was in the Copper Age. That's a pretty quality shoe. Might not be as advanced as the bubbles in Nikes or whatever, but it definitely would keep your feet warm and protect.
Hey, I ain't mad. Hey, whatever you got to do the job. That's what they was thinking back then. Hey, we just need to keep our feet warm or put something on our feet when we walking around so we're not barefoot. Hey, I respect it.
detected. Number 14. The missing ships of a doomed explorer. Captain Sir John Franklin's Lost Expedition was a British Arctic exploration expedition that ended in disaster. The two ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, set sail from England in 1845. HMS Terror, by the way, is a badass name for a ship. Their goal was to travel to the last uncharted parts of the Northwest Passage in the Canadian Arctic and record magnetic data to see if a better understanding could help with navigation. The mission went wrong when both ships and their crews of 129 officers and men got stuck in the Victoria Strait near King William Island in what's now the Canadian province of Nunavut. In 2014, a search team found the wreck of the Erebus in the eastern part of the Queen Maud Gulf. 2 years later, they also found the Terror in Terror Bay, which is south of King William Island. The wreck sites are now protected as a historical national site, where researchers and divers go every year. Divers have found Sir John Franklin's desk on the wreck of the HS Terror, which was just found again. We hope that the drawers hold journals that are still around or something, and we hope that he was a clear writer. Number 13. Ancient teeth found in China could rewrite human history. Human teeth found in southern China show that our species left Africa up to 70,000 years earlier than most current theorists say. The find adds to the growing number of fossils from China that don't fit neatly into the current human family tree. Homo sapiens were in modern-day China between 80,000 and 120,000 years ago. This discovery would change our understanding of how modern humans moved around the world. Research from the past shows that the most likely way for them to get from East Africa to East Asia was through the Arabian Peninsula in the Middle East. There's no evidence that Homo sapiens came to Europe before 45,000 years ago, which is at least 40,000 years after they were first found in what is now China. In the past few years, more and more chapters and characters have been added to the story of humanity, making it more and more complicated. They found that the Tongzi teeth have features from both the past and the present. In particular, the dentine, which is part of the tooth under the enamel, doesn't have the crinkles that can be seen in the tooth of Homo erectus. Many of the teeth, on the other hand, are very simple and thought to be like those of later Homo species like Neanderthals. This is the great story of our own past being unraveled. Number 12. America's last known slave ship. The schooner Clotilda, which was the last known ship to bring enslaved Africans to America, was found in 2019 by marine archaeologists in a remote part of Alabama's Mobile River after a year-long search. Between the early 1600s and 1860, about 389,000 Africans were brought to the mainland United States as slaves, and the last of these people arrived on the Clotilda. The transatlantic slave trade involved a lot of ships, but very few slave wrecks have ever been found. Rare accounts written by slaveholders and slaves themselves were found on the wreck, and they give a unique look into the Atlantic slave trade. Over the years, many people have tried to find the Clotilda's remains, but the mobile Tensas Delta is full of sloughs, oxbows, and bayous, as well as dozens of shipwrecks from more than 300 years of shipping. In January 2018, a local journalist named Ben Rains said that he had found the remains of a large wooden ship when the tide was unusually low. It turned out to be a different ship, but the false alarm brought the long-lost slaver ship back into the public eye. Soon a team was able to start a big operation to find the Clotilda and finally figured out where it was. Now a national slave ship memorial is being planned. Number 11. A Roman villa complex containing a one-of-a-kind mosaic that's been discovered beneath a farmer's field in Rutland. During the 2022 lockdown, a family walked through the fields that led to a "oh wow" moment. The discovery of a Roman villa complex with a rare mosaic of Homer's The Iliad. This is now thought to be one of the most interesting and important discoveries of its kind in Britain. The mosaic was found under a farmer's field in Rutland. It's the only one in Europe that shows scenes from a Greek epic poem. It's also the first one to be found in the UK. Their research showed that the mosaic is part of an elaborate villa complex with many other buildings and structures. It's likely that a wealthy Roman lived there between the 3rd and 4th centuries AD at the end of the Roman Empire. Like some kind of Roman Elon Musk, maybe. Was he the inventor of the electric chariot? Yeah, well, obviously not. The pieces of the mosaic that are still there are 11 meters long and almost 7 meters wide. They make up the floor of what is thought to be a large dining or party area. We all know how the Romans knew how to party. Even though mosaics were used in both public and private buildings all over the Roman Empire and often showed famous people from history and mythology, only a few of them still show Achilles fighting Hector at the end of the Trojan War, so this one's really cool. Number 10. A hoard of Anglo-Saxon gold. On July 5th, 2009, a man in the village of Hammerwich in the English county of Staffordshire went out for metal detecting. He asked the field's owner for permission, and then he got to work. And on that day, he had some serious good luck with his favorite hobby. He uncovered one of the biggest hoards of all time. The Staffordshire hoard has thousands of Roman garnets. Most of them were made into parts for swords and daggers, using stones from the Czech Republic for cloisine and stones from India for cabochons. This is a great example of how far-reaching Roman industry and trade were, and how their work was still felt hundreds of years after they left. Before Britannia was abandoned by the Romans, the stones used to make these very fancy pommels and hilts were mined and brought in more than 200 years prior to the Anglo-Saxon arrival on England. Even after the Roman Empire had been gone for Britain for hundreds of years, it was still sending large amounts of the best materials. Number 9. New type of ancient human discovered in Israel. A skull was found during excavations at the Israeli site of Nesher Ramallah. It may be from a member group of hominids that lived in and around what's now Israel between 420,000 and 120,000 years ago. Researchers from Tel Aviv University and the Hebrew University of Jerusalem say that pieces of a skull and a lower jaw with teeth are about 130,000 years old. This could mean that parts of the human family tree need to be rethought. Analysis showed that the person it belonged to wasn't a full Homo sapien though. They were one of our cousins. We probably fought with and murdered them half the time. Life was tough back then. They also were not Neanderthal, which was thought to be the only other type of person who lived in the area at the time. Instead, this person is a member of a unique group of Homo that's never been seen before by scientists. Welcome to the human family, my 180,000-year-old friend. Number 8. Stonehenge's rocks have been traced to 2 quarries 180 miles away. Stonehenge has puzzled researchers and visitors for a long time. One of the biggest questions about the old monument has finally been answered. Where did the big rocks come from? About 180 miles away in Pembrokeshire, which is the western part of Wales, is the answer. These huge bluestone pillars could be slowly lowered onto a platform which served as a loading bay where they could then be lowered again into wooden sledges and pulled away. Charcoal pieces found by researchers show that the stones were taken out of the ground around 3000 BC. Many people have different ideas about where Stonehenge came from. In August 2018, a study found that 10 of the cremated remains buried at the prehistoric monument came from Western Britain, with the others coming from southern Wales. Over the years, the mystery of Stonehenge has led to many conspiracy theories that range from the supernatural to just plain strange. A lot of people think that Stonehenge is connected to aliens. We don't have any solid proof of how the monument was built, so some people just think aliens.
What if it's like a large, or a way to communicate? What if that was like a signal or some type of something? I don't know. You know? Why not think stuff like that? We still haven't figured out what it is yet. I know a lot of people think spiritual, but we haven't fully confirmed that yet. So why not have fun with it? Maybe it's a communication tool for aliens.
And, I mean, heck, why not? Travel halfway across the galaxy just to pitch in, build in a weird temple, and then go home. I mean, that makes sense to me. Number 7. King Herod's resting place. Herod the Great, king of Judea, died more than 2,000 years ago, but it should not have been too hard to find where he was buried. Most experts thought that his tomb was in Herodium, which is a large complex built by the king on a hill south of Jerusalem.
Boy, I'll tell you what, that's a king on a hill.
Anyway, less than 100 years after Herod's death, a biography was written about him, and it talked about where in Herodium the king was buried. For decades, people looked for it, but they couldn't find it until recently. Herodium is built on a volcano-shaped hill about 8 miles south of modern-day Jerusalem. Herod's desert retreat was a huge white stone complex with a fortified palace, administrative buildings, gardens, and ritual baths. On April 27, 2007, workers found a piece of high-quality pink limestone with a lot of carvings. Herod's tomb was found when more digging up turned up a sarcophagus that looked like it was made for a king.
Bah, a king of a hill.
Number 6. A hidden portrait of Mary, Queen of Scots. A portrait of a Tudor aristocrat that had been hanging on the wall of an old house outside of London was found to have a ghostly image of Mary, Queen of Scots underneath it. In the political chaos that happened after she was killed in 1587, her portrait may have been seen as dangerous and left unfinished. The nervous artist then painted over it. The Scottish National Portrait Gallery showed an X-ray of her blurry image, which had been hidden for almost 450 years behind the portrait of Sir John Maitland, a courtier who became Lord Chancellor of Scotland. Even though Mary had always been interesting, there aren't many real paintings of her. This is likely because she was a controversial figure long before she was put to death. She was involved in the religious upheavals of the time and was thought to have killed her husband. She was forced to give up the throne in 1567 and was jailed in England by her cousin Elizabeth I and put to death after being linked to plans for a rebellion. That's a pretty wild life, and now we can glimpse the face of the original Bloody Mary. Number 5. 4,000-year-old game board discovered in Azerbaijan. A bunch of marks on the floor.
Yep, Jumanji. Leave it alone.
Or of a rock shelter in Azerbaijan may look like an unbreakable ancient code, but one archaeologist says he's cracked it. It looks a lot like the well-known game 58 Holes, which is also called Hounds and Jackals. Ancient Egypt and...
I never figured out that game. Or the one, is that the same one where you used to go to restaurants as a kid and be there and you just spend the whole time just pulling one out, putting it in, pulling one out, putting it in? Never really knew how to play that game. That along with Minesweeper, I can go on. It's a list of them that I don't even know why they even made them.
Mesopotamia, once a cultural center in southwestern Asia near modern-day Syria, were both big fans of the game Hounds and Jackals. Finding a 4,000-year-old version of the game in Azerbaijan's Gobustan National Park, which is on the UNESCO World Heritage List, was a bit of a surprise, since there was no evidence that the game had been played there at that time. The find shows that ancient people who lived there almost certainly had contact with people who lived far away. People have compared Hounds and Jackals to early versions of backgammon. Like backgammon, Hounds and Jackals is thought to be a two-player game, where the goal is to move markers along a dotted track towards a finish line. But since there are no boxes with rules on the back, if there was some kind of papyrus instruction booklet, it's long disappeared, and researchers can't say for sure what the rules are or what the end goal really is. But I bet it's pretty safe to say that it usually ended with the winner shouting, "In your face, loser!" just like every other board game ever. Number 4. The world's oldest known examples of storytelling. More than 36,000 years ago, these paintings were made in Chevet Pont des Arcs cave in France. The real cave isn't open to the public, so the whole cave was rebuilt as a museum called Chevet 2. Everything down to the charcoal marks and bones on the floor is made to look just like the real cave. And it's an awesome place to go. Every time I see pictures of these, I'm amazed by how well the animals are drawn and how well they were done, especially considering that they were only lit with torch flames. It's meant to look like it moves when seen in the light of a campfire. They really knew how to make animation look like it was moving like flipbooks, but they used firelight, which they couldn't control like electricity, to move the image instead of moving the image itself. How cool is that? Number 3. 110 million year old armored dinosaur nodosaur, best preserved ever found in Alberta.
Definitely.
At first glance, the gray blocks that have been put together look like a 9-foot long dinosaur model. Its neck and back are covered with a mosaic of shards of bone, and gray circles outline each scale. Its neck curves gracefully to the left as if it were reaching.
Why look like alligators could have came from this type of dinosaur? You know what I mean? Just based on the armor on its back. You know, they always tell you when they go gator hunting or something like that, they got to hit that quarter-size hole on the back. Like, it just, yeah, that just made me think of an alligator.
Shards of bone, and gray circles outline each scale. Its neck curves gracefully to the left as if it were reaching for something tasty. But this isn't a sculpture that looks real. It's a real dinosaur that turned to stone. The more I think about it, the more it blows my mind. Bits of fossilized skin cover the armored plates on the animal's head. For paleontologists, the dinosaur's amazing level of fossilization, caused by its quick burial underwater, is as rare as winning the lottery. Usually only the bones and teeth are preserved, and only rarely do minerals replace soft tissues before they rot away. The remarkable fossil is a newfound species and genus of dinosaur, a type of ankylosaur. Nodosaurus, unlike other ankylosaurs, didn't have a tail club that could break your leg, but they did use thorny armor to keep predators away. The 18-foot long, nearly 3,000-pound behemoth lumbered across the land between 110 million and 112 million years ago, right around the end of the Cretaceous period. It was the rhinoceros of its time, a grumpy herbivore that mostly kept to itself, but it wasn't to be messed with, because the nodosaur had a trick up its sleeve. Two 20-inch long spikes that stuck out of its shoulders like a pair of bull's horns that had been put in the wrong place. Number 2. A silver diadem found at La Almoloya archaeological site in southern Spain suggests that a woman buried almost 4,000 years ago might have been the ruler of the Agaric civilization. In 2014, archaeologists at Almoloya, a Bronze Age site in northeastern Spain, found a woman buried with a lot of fancy objects. Now researchers think this unknown woman might have been related to the ruler of El Algar, a society that lived on the Iberian Peninsula, from 2200 to 1550 BC. The woman was buried with about 30 valuable items, such as a silver crown, vessels with animal offerings, and jewelry. The hoard had 230 grams of silver, which at the time was equal to 938 days' wages, or 7,385 pounds of barley. And the items were of the highest quality. Other highlights of the find include bracelets, rings, earlobe plugs, a dagger, layered necklace beads, textiles, and pottery. These were all symbolic items made for the women, making them certainly part of a dominant ruling class. Each piece is unique and similar to burial items from other regions that belong to the ruling class. Scholars don't know if the 4 other women who were buried with the diadems were religious or political leaders, but the fact that La Almoloya crown was found in a building that is thought to be a government building supports the idea that these women had a lot of power. Number 1. The origin of mysterious footprints. Legend has it that the devil once walked down the side of a volcano in southern Italy. Each step that he took is now set in stone and will stay there forever. The tracks are called the Devil's Trail, but new information shows that their history is much less evil and much more interesting. People who live near Rocca Monafina, a volcano in southern Italy that hasn't erupted in tens of thousands of years, have seen strange footprints many times. Radiometric and geological dating of the different layers of rock have already shown that the footprints were made in the soft blanket of ash left after a volcano eruption about 350,000 years ago. This makes them some of the oldest footprints ever found that have been preserved. But who put these tracks here? It's impossible to know for sure from a bunch of shapes pressed awkwardly together in old volcanic ash. Since Homo sapiens didn't start to look like us until 315,000 years ago, we can be pretty sure they weren't members of our own species. No one knows what made a group of ancient humans run through the cooling soot and debris after the mountain violently blew its top, but it's clear from the marks there that they weren't in a hurry. No matter how tough the soles of your feet are, it's not for the faint of heart to slowly walk barefoot through material that was just dumped by a 300°C flow of billowing pyroclastic insanity. Are you interested in archaeology? What's your theory on the origins of human beings? Let us know in the comments below. Also, check out...
I think the origins of human beings still fascinates me to the utmost, man. Just trying to figure out, like, you know, how we got here or where we came from or what we derived from. You know what I mean? And then what they experience. That's what really has me like wanting to know, like, what did they experience? How did they figure things out? What all things they had? I know they had to overcome a lot of things. So just trying to hear about that and understand their ways of life and different things that they had to accomplish and overcome. So, but this was a super dope video, man. And still, a flat tire leads to a discovery. That's just still just mind-blowing. Y'all get at me in the comment section, man. Let me know what you think. And stick around and stay tuned. The next one I'm gone. Peace.